If God is real, and if God is good, then why do bad things happen? Since the beginning of time, well-meaning people have bent over backwards to answer that question. Oh. I'm okay. But no answer seems to satisfy. Here's the truth. No one knows. Sure, we can pinpoint surface-level cause and effect. The other driver was drunk. When tectonic plates shift, there was this economic bubble that burst. There's this thing called sin. But as you peel back the layers, things become less and less clear. We simply don't know. There are two common presuppositions. That's a big word. Let me write that down. Or underlying assumptions that tend to complicate our confusion in the face of tragedy. The first is that human beings are essentially good, and that God, as a result, if he exists, owes us a pain-free existence. However, most religions understandably reject this thinking. First, God, by definition, is beholden to no one. To be sovereign, again, big words. S-O-V-E-R-E-I-G-N. Sovereign. Or the ultimate authority means that you can will and do whatever you want and still be good. If we have a God who owes us because of our goodness, then we don't have a God. We have a pet. Come here, God. You gotta go for a walk? Sit, speak, good God. The second presupposition that complicates our confusion is the belief that we as humans have a perspective from which we can judge God. We assume that we see enough of the scenario, have enough information to determine whether or not God is right or wrong, just or jerk. But this is an assumption that overlooks our limitations. If God exists, then he by definition is the artist, so to speak, behind the whole of human history. To judge his actions, we would have to be able to stand back and share his view, to take in the entire painting, to see how it all fits and flows together. But we can't. Why? Because we're part of it, and all we get to see is our inch. And if you've ever pressed your nose against a picture, even a masterpiece, I don't get it. All I see are like dots and blobs. Is that supposed to be a tree? It can seem ugly. What if in the face of tragedy we asked a different question altogether? What if instead of why, we focused on what? What promises of God do I know to be true despite this sadness? God will answer that question. What can I do in response to this evil that might bless and serve others? God will answer that question. What things within our control could we do differently to avoid this problem in the future? God will answer that question. Many have found this shift helpful. It changes the focus from demanding a divine explanation to being part of divine redemption, bringing beauty out of a bad situation. A helpful analogy can be found in parenting. When dealing with young children, answering why is almost always pointless, because no matter what answer you give, the response is the same. Why is the sky blue? Daddy's not a scientist, sweetheart. Why? I was more into stories and art. Why? Because your grandma read to me. Why? Because we didn't have money for other entertainment. Why? Because grandpa lost his job. Why? Because there was a recession. Why? Because humans are greedy. Why? Because we're broken. Why? Because Adam and Eve. Why? Because God. Why? Because it's time for you to go to bed. That's why. Yet lovingly telling our children what they can do is far more fruitful. While a child may not be able to grasp the situation, every child in some way can be part of the solution. And maybe the same dynamic is true with God. Why do bad things happen? We don't know. Should we ask? Sure. But we should also understand the limits of that question. We can live our lives fighting for an answer to the question why, or we can trust that there's a good dad who knows the things that we don't, but who invites us to be a part of the solution. We can trust that there is a great painter who encourages us to join him in making our messy little piece of the canvas as beautiful as possible.